the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
That's two top 130 players in Christian Gass and Harmon now. So it was a big weekend, and Harmon we can talk about in a second, but the question from the Schumpert family. David Sanders Jr. is the biggest Vols recruiting win since who? Ryan Schumpert. So I'm curious, let's start with you on this one, coming from the family on this.
Yeah, and the perspective is kind of, most impressive win, I guess, recruiting win. And for me, and look, I'm 25, so I don't have the best perspective on this. This would be a great question next time you have like AP or Brent or Callahan on to ask them, because they have a little bit more, or just a little bit longer look. But to me, I think it's Bryce Brown. And not that I remember a ton about Bryce Brown's recruitment, but just right when Lane Kiffin gets there, number one player in the country, if my memory serves correct, he waited till after signing day. So it was one of those really rare guys that recruitment was going on through February in Tennessee on a really short timetable, landed the number one player in the country. So that's the one I would say. And as my brain goes back around the big recruiting wins kind of since I've started following it, or the biggest recruiting wins since I've started following it, Nico's certainly up there, but, to me that feels, and there was more than NIL involved, but that felt very much like Tennessee was on the cutting edge of the NIL stuff, and money played a big factor in that decision. Khalil McKenzie was a top 5 recruit nationally. Dad played at Tennessee. Number of other big recruits, but no one really quite on that same level. I mean, David Sanders has been maybe Tennessee's biggest recruiting target this entire recruiting cycle, at least since George McIntyre committed. He's been a top 5 recruit consensus really the whole entire time, and no ties to Tennessee. Past Grant Williams playing at his high school, not from the state of Tennessee, and Tennessee really beat out the very best recruiting powers in the country. And in the end, Georgia and Ohio State, and certainly Clemson and Alabama were involved there too for a while until it got weeded out. To me, it's the most impressive one since I've been following it, and Bryce Brown would be kind of the one that I'd point back to with limited remembrance on what that recruitment exactly looked like.
He was really good, man. Like that, the 1 year with Kiffin, and I think he would have been really, really special. That's a big what if situation. But yeah, Bryce Brown's a good call. What about you, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm not gonna claim to know much about recruiting either. Kind of similar to Ryan's point. I mean, my first thought when I saw the question was Nico, and then I thought back a little more, and you think Eric Berry, maybe. Trey Smith, I think, came into my mind as well, but it feels like he was there kind of all the time for him as well, similar to Nico, as Ryan just said. But yeah, dude, I mean, similar to the lines of Trey Smith, it's just massive. I mean, these are players that Georgia usually gets, and if you want to be the caliber of Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and all these top teams that always seem to get pretty much their pick of the litter, whoever they want, Tennessee getting the number 3, commit in the class, that's pretty huge, especially considering the fact, I mean, the number of visits he went to. I believe Clemson was on there, Georgia was on there. He went like 6 times to Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, and Tennessee led the pack. They had I don't know the number, I'm going to butcher it, but he visited a lot. And to Ryan's point, I mean, it's a guy that Tennessee targeted for a long time. To see him get up there, it's just incredible what Heupel's been able to do recently, and it absolutely brought shades of Eric Berry, of Nico, and that level of excitement, I guess.
Yeah, I think Barry's a good one. He's from Fairburn. At the time, that was a big pull, obviously, and then Boo Carter is probably the closest comp to Barry in that regard, where like Barry as a true freshman, it's like you can't keep him off the field. Like Eric Berry's going to play as a freshman. Like this is happening. He's that good and that special right out of the gate. And going out of state, like that's the thing. It's like Trey Smith was a good one, but it's like in state. Yeah, like Memphis is not as easy as like if he grew up in Knoxville, Nashville, something like that. But still, Tennessee has a good track record of bringing in Memphis guys. I think Jamal Lewis back in Atlanta in the late 90s was a big one. Obviously, he was an all-time great here. I think being able to get Jamal Lewis and kind of like that running back run that Tennessee was on with Travis Henry, Travis Stevens, Arian Foster, Cedric Houston. There were so many dudes in that era, but Jamal Lewis was really kind of that first one that kind of set the tone and was obviously an all-time great. And so I think it's bigger when you can pull out of state and tough areas to pull guys away from home and make them go a little bit of a distance. And North Carolina obviously has been huge for Tennessee. And with the Heupel era, is just Faison Brandon, number one player in North Carolina in 2026. David Sanders, number one player in North Carolina in 2025. And then James Pierce was the number one player in North Carolina, or David Hobbs was the number one player in North Carolina 2 cycles ago. So you've been like, you're just going to North Carolina and taking the best year over year. And there's a lot of good talent in the state of North Carolina. So I think the way Tennessee's recruiting makes a lot of sense right now, especially like quarterback, you go wherever. Like Casey Clausen, California guy. Where was Crompton from? Was he California too, or is he North
Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina, yeah.
Western North Carolina.
And then you just go around like around the world. Like Nico, obviously a California guy, but
Europe.
Like I mean around the world, around the country, excuse me. But like there, like you can go wherever. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of different choices here, but I guess if I had to narrow it down, like the biggest one for what this means for Tennessee, my gut is probably still to lean Eric Berry, but you could tell me on a couple different ones. I don't think it's Trey Smith. I think Trey Smith was good. Bryce Brown, maybe a little bit, but also we just learned Kiffin was a good recruiter, and like that was a good class. Like Kiffin was Kiffin would have, that 1 year was indicative, I think, of if Kiffin stuck around at Tennessee, I think he would have been recruiting at a really, really high elite level in Knoxville for years to come. And that's always gonna be a big what if, but that is neither here nor there. But some of these lists, and you got to feel good if you're a Vol fan, where you're starting to stack up guys who are from the Heupel tree. So Jordan Ross here, 14th on 247 all time. Then you have Nico at number 4, David Sanders now at number 2. You have, I'm scrolling a little bit further, Mike Matthews in that top 15, top 20. So it's like he's quietly stacking up a lot of these all-time best recruits in Tennessee history, and I think it's a testament to the kind of role that Tennessee's on in the recruiting. But I'm also like, it's way too early to start doing this, but I don't know if y'all had the same thought, but my immediate thought was, oh, what does this mean for the tackles next year? Because my initial thought was like, Lance Hurd's penciled in here at left tackle, and if he's good, like I think one of the common misconceptions with fans is like every tackle can play both sides. And that's just not true. Like you have like some guys can be swing guys and go back and forth between the two. A lot of guys can't, especially at the NFL level. It's kind of, you got to be one or the other. Penei Sewell was kind of that, where they were like, oh, he can be, it's like, no, Penei Sewell's on one side, and that's just really all he can do. And he's elite. He's one of the best tackles at that particular thing. But like, is David Sanders going to do right tackle for a while? Is he going to do the Darnell Wright thing and just bounce back to left when Lance goes to the pros after next year, potentially? Bennett Warren, where does he factor in? Like, it's a good problem to have, but my mind immediately went to next year's tackle battle is going to be wild, because I mean, there aren't a lot of positions in the sport where true freshmen have a realistic path of starting. Georgia does it at tackle sometimes. They're like the back end at safeties. Like there are 5-star guys who come in with that build. And what helps too is like, I'm assuming David's going to be an early enrollee in December. So you get a head start on getting ready and getting in the weight room and putting on weight and getting ready. So that should help in learning the offense. So he'll have 9 months to get acclimated to Tennessee to see if he's able to start right away. But I don't know. Like it's a good problem to have, but the tackle situation next year could be wild. This year it's just stay healthy at all costs. Like that's this year I'm just like stay healthy. Like just get through this year and please John Campbell and Lance Hurd stay healthy. But I don't know. The battle next year is going to be extremely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean it will be. And I have thought about it, and my brain also went there to how all that irons itself out. And I mean, look, like I know it happens some, but I don't know. And David Sanders is truly an elite prospect, so maybe he is just that type of guy. But
Darnell Wright started as a true freshman?
He did, and so did Wanya Morris in that same year. But it's still off the top, was not a spot where typically you see a lot of guys come in and start at. I know Caden Proctor did it last year.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's impossible, but it's also, to me, not one of the easier spots. But yeah, I mean, it's the competition is going to be, would be fascinating, and I think it feels like Tennessee's been in the market for an offensive tackle, like in the portal every single offseason. Heupel's been here. It feels like for the first time that probably won't be the case, as long as they like the development they've had, for Bennett Warren over the course of this year.
Ethan, call your shot. Who leads the Vols of the Vols wide receivers in touchdowns this season?
It's whoever ends up being the X receiver between Thornton and Brazzell. I mean, yeah, they're both the 6'5" guys. I've seen some people say it's going to be Squirrel. I just feel like Nico's skill set is going to not pander, but for lack of a better.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.